Greetings. Welcome to another episode of The More We Need to Know series, Volume 3. I'm your host, Supreme L. I'm not going to tally you long, excuse me, this evening, but I do want to go into a few things that I've come across. Um, uh, that's really important to us. And I want to thank my brother, my good brother, Ms. Raheem, Mantis 29, uh, and also the Grand National Sheikh, Taj Tariq Bey. And it's important that we go over certain situations because the truth of the matter is the only thing that's going to save us is nationality. Um, Proclaiming your nationality is what's going to save you, is what's going to save us as a people. Because we've been under an experiment. Um, we've been under rules and codes, um, and particularly the black codes. And we've been prone to say that's what we are, and people, say it loud. They black and they proud, and that's hurting them, and they just don't know that it's really hurting them. It's hurting us as a people. So, part of that is finance. Okay, so going and knowing that we are under a false precept or perception of what's running the world, especially when it comes to politics. And we have to bring ourselves to remember who we are. Um, all across the world, people know they have a nationality, and we are the only people that doesn't grab or hold or get the concept of us having a nationality, because everybody knows that black is not an identity, or know that the moment you think or start talking like that, you're going to denationalize them, and they not going to have that. They know better than that. So to get into our topics today, which is going to segue into many more topics that we're going to have on the show, entitled The More We Need to Know. This is the More We Need to Know series. And I want to bring up something that was interesting that we can use. First of all, we have to enforce the Constitution for the United States of America and the treaties that is the supreme law of the land. Okay? Want to get into this right here first. And we're going to come back to Congressman McFadden. Now we're going to keep him in on the forefront, because this is very important. Congressman Louis T. McFadden. And I encourage you to look him up. For instance, I'm gonna read the portion that you may see on the screen. Congressman McFadden on the Federal Reserve Corporation remarks in Congress 1934, an astounding exposure. You know what I'm saying? And it's a lot. And as you can see up at the header, conspiracy, fraud, unlawful conversion, and treason. And we're going to get to that. But let's go to the Constitution, right? And we have the articles here, right? And we're going to go to the section. If I can skim down. I don't mean to cover the prophet, but let's go to. I can bring that. Okay, that's Article 1. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Okay. Where's it go? Section 4, Article 4, Section 4. Okay? The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. Okay, right there, it guarantees a Republican form of government. All right, we're looking at so many people will defend the democracy, and if you look in here through this whole Constitution, right, there's nothing in all of the articles that says anything about a democracy. Okay? Nothing, nothing, nothing. And we should look here at Article 3, Section 2, right? The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity. I would implore you to look up law and equity. Um, Me and my brother, Ms. or Mantis 29, were looking up law and equity. And let me see if I still have it pulled up here. Equity, right? Equity here. And I think it was 25, 3725, right? All right, 3725. Courts of equity are bound by the laws as much as courts of law. The difference is this: when the law is clear and beyond a doubt, both must obey it and enforce its mandates. But the legislator cannot foresee all cases which may arise. In cases of this kind, many that happen may fall, if not within the letter, within the spirit of the law. These cases, thus out of the letter, are often said to be within the equity of the statute. Now, we know most of these venues use statutes, right? They use statutes. They don't normally, they rarely, in all instances, use law. You rarely hear and see them use law, but they use statutes. And it says, these cases, thus out of the letter, are often said to be within the equity of the statute, and cases within the letter are frequently out of the equity. Now that says a lot. Let me read that again, and we can comprehend what that is saying. These cases, thus out of the letter, are often said to be within the equity of the statute, and cases within the letter are frequently out of the equity. So I guess in layman terms, that would say what? What would that say? Anybody in the section, comment section, what does that say? Or what you think that means or implies? Maybe trading places, law and equity, trading places, right? Maybe? Okay. But let's continue. Equity in cases of this kind is nothing but a sound interpretation of the law. But courts of law and courts of equity are, however, bound by the same rules of interpretation. A court of equity is bound by rules and precedents, from which it will not depart, although the reason of some of them may not be quite clear. It is true. Such a court has a discretion, but that discretion is a science and not an arbitrary act. It is governed by rules of law and equity, law and equity together, law and equity together, which are not to oppose, but each in its turn is subservient to the other, and courts of equity are bound by precedents equally with courts of law. Formally, no doubt the administration of equity in England was arbitrary, and the boundaries of the jurisdiction of courts of equity were not strongly marked. What seldom said of them was perhaps true. For law, we have a measure and know what to trust to. Equity is according to the conscience of him that is chancellor, and as that is larger or narrower, so is equity. 'Tis all one, as if they should make a standard for the measure, the chancellor's foot. All right. So let's go down. In modern times, however, courts of equity have no more pardon me. Yeah. Oh, in modern times, however, courts of equity have no more disciplinary what is that over there? Hold on, y'all. I see something over here. Okay. In modern times, however, courts of equity have no more disciplinary power to depart from principles than courts of law. They decide new cases as they arise, but the principles on which former cases have been decided and may thus illustrate or enlarge those principles. But the principles are as fixed and certain as the principles on which courts of common law proceed. The principal difference between these courts consists in the different modes of administrating justice in the mode of proof, the mode of trial, and the mode of relief. This will move fully appear when we come to treat of the form of the remedies in equity in the latter part of this book. Then we get into maxims, 3726. All right, this is really, really important. Maxims are rules or principles of law universally admitted as being just and constant, with reason. Read that again. Maxims are rules or principles of law universally. That's across the board, right? That's across the board there. Maxims are rules or principles of law universally admitted as being just and consonant with reason. They are something like axioms in geometry. Many maxims are merely the statement, in short and pithy sentence, of principles which claim the assent of mankind. All right, and they get into a lot more, but we have maxims. All right, maxims. Now let's go to some maxims. Right, let's look at some maxims. Let's look at a couple of maxims. Right, let's look at some maxims here. These are maxims, right? Maxims of law, right? And I had, let me see, written some down. I wrote some of them down. Where are they going? Okay. Which is the, what is this one? 20, 24, 24, 24F. 24F. Contracts. Okay. Contracts. Let's go to maxims according to contracts, and we say see also agree and deeds. Okay. Let's start with 24A. 24A. An action cannot be founded on a barren or unconditional contract. All right. 24. A contract is, as it were, act against act. All right. An obligation which arises from contract or quasi contract is dissolved in the same way in which it was contracted. And that's important because, we anytime we sign or put our signature or put a signature on any document, that is considered a bond or contract. All right. And if it's a contract, you know, 24D. Words spoken vanish, words written remain. That's important. Words spoken vanish, words written remain. So if they say we made a verbal contract, like, yeah, you go on to try to go on a tribunal and say, yeah, we had a verbal contract, and I want him or her to uphold her end of the bargain. A maxim, law of maxim is words spoken vanish, words written remain. So it's best that you ought to have something, written. You know what I'm saying? If you want to have anything to stand on. A written contract cannot be varied by parole proof. All right. Let's see. A contract 24F. A contract without consideration or upon a false consideration, which fails, or upon unlawful considerations cannot have any effect. That's a good one. All right, that's a contract without consideration or upon a false consideration, which fails, or upon unlawful considerations cannot have any effect. And then it gives you the cases to where to go find it, right? And that's good if we, you know, signing things, and you know, we thinking we having consideration for that, and come to find out, say it's a contract on, uh, getting a car loan, house, mortgage, and stuff like that, right? And we're coming to find out that these things are actually, fraud. These contracts are fraud because they're being securitized. And look up securitization, and you'll understand why I say that. 24G. The place of the contract governs the act. All right. 24I. Private contracts or agreements cannot degrade from public law or rights. That's a good one to use and have as well. 24J. This is a really good one that I think everybody should use and have in contracts. The truth of the matter ought to be regarded rather than the writing. That is a good maxim. We can use this maxim in the court, right? For example, if you're in court and someone is trying to get you to pay something, right? They want to force you to pay something, which we know we can't pay anything. That we only can discharge it. Federal Reserve notes are only used to discharge things, right? But they want to get you to say that you pay for it. And since you have a contract with them and you owe them, quote unquote, this money that is not money in contracts, the truth of the matter ought to be regarded rather than the writing. So you can never, you can, you can't pay them no money because we not allowed to handle money, quote unquote, which is constitutionally gold and silver coins, right? Which they hypothecated. If you refer to James Traficant, uh, senator from Ohio, his speech, right? And we'll get into that as we go on too. But yeah, this maxim 24J is a good maxim to use, all right? Again, in contracts, the truth of the matter are to be regarded rather than the writing, the contract itself, all right? Just got a text. Okay. What are other ones that I've seen? Okay, 24M is another good maxim we could use and hold close to the bosom. Contracts which are not illegal and do not originate in fraud must in all respects be observed, right? Contracts which are not illegal and do not originate in fraud must in all respects be observed, right? So keep that one close, use that one because that is a good one too. So 24O. Equal knowledge on both sides makes contracting parties equal. All right. Full disclosure. Right? That goes back to contract law of full disclosure. You must know everything. All right. So again, I'm gonna use this mortgage thing and these car loans, because we're dealing with the banking. The banking is what really took our birthright. Well, United States company really have been taking our birthright and selling it to these international bankers like the IMF and the Federal Reserve, which is not part of the United States. A lot of people think that is the Federal Reserve, meaning, oh, they're part of the United States, which they are not. The Federal Reserve is not part of the United States, so let's make that clear. And I'm harping on that because that's how we have remedy. We have remedy. Maxims are law. They are remedies, right? So going back to 24O, equal knowledge on both sides makes contracting parties equal. Okay. So you did not know in the contract that when you sign for something and it becomes a bond, they put it on the stock market and sell it. That's why somebody can come back to you and say, hey, we are a bill collector. You didn't pay this bill and we're trying to get this from you. It was sold to them. They purchased it because it was already. We have to understand that when we sign anything, we are the creditors. All right, we are the beneficiaries. We are Moorish Americans. This is our land. All right, and everybody knows it. Everybody know who we are. We just don't know who we are, and they laugh at us. You know what I'm saying? They laugh at us when we are outside of ourselves or outside of the law, because the law starts with us. Okay, we should be studying. We should know these things. And one, I'm gonna show you guys something, right? They really dumbed us down, like tried their best to really do us like injustice for real, and they continue to do it because they know once we get a hold of what, once we get a hold of and grasp on who we are, who we truly are, then there's nothing that can stop us, y'all. Nothing that can stop us. Once we start to study and get back to ourselves, there's nothing that can stop us. And that's what we have to do. We have to get back to ourselves. I want to show you guys something. Where it go? Again, this is the zip drive that I got from House of Reawakening Minds, Dr. G, and I implore you, you ought to get it. You ought to get it. There was something that I seen here that like I saw right, and I'm like, wow. Okay, right here. This is what the Europeans received in 1895. All right, this is what they received. Jerry Blaze, peace, 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 babe. What's going on with you, more Islam, more? Uh, this is an eighth grade test in 1895, right? This is an eighth grade test, right? All right. It says education in 1895. Could you pass this test? All of this and no computer to find the answers, right? What it took to get an eighth grade education in 1895. Remember when grandparents and great grandparents stated that they only had an eighth grade education? Well, check this. Could any of us have passed the eighth grade in 1895? This is the eighth grade final exam from 1895 in Salina, Kansas, USA. It was taken from the original document on file at the Smoky Valley Genealogical Code. I got a call, my bad, y'all. I apologize about that. I got a call real quick, but just look at this right quick. Just look at this while I check something out. Pardon me, give me 1 second, but look at that and check that out. Pardon me, I'm back. I just had to take a call right quick, but I am back, so thank you. But again, if we take a look at this eighth grade final exam, right? Do you think you can pass this? Give 9 rules for the use of capital letters. Name the parts of speech and define those that have no modifications. Define verse, stanza, and paragraph. What are the principal parts of verb? Give the principal parts of lie, play, and run. And then it goes on. It goes on down to, it says grammar, arithmetic, U.S. history, orthography. What, what is that? Uh, I see etymology though. There, yeah, that jumps out at me indeed. But yeah, yeah. But continue to go back to where we were, right? And we'll get back into the maxims of law. Um, but here, I want to get into where some of our downfall from um, not internal, but an external um, point of view, right? And I'm going to bring this down, bring this all the way down so we can see profit. Right. All right. Congressman McFadden on the Federal Reserve Corporation remarks in Congress, 1934, an outstanding exposure. All right, and this is Congressman McFadden's speech on the Federal Reserve Corporation. Quotation from several speeches made on the floor of the House of Representatives by the Honorable Louis T. McFadden of Pennsylvania. Mr. McFadden, due to his having served as chairman of the Banking and Currency Committee for more than 10 years, was the best posted man on these matters in America and was in a position to speak with authority of the vast ramifications of this gigantic private credit monopoly. As representatives of a state which was among the first to declare its freedom from foreign money tyrants, it is fitting that Pennsylvania, the cradle of liberty, be again given the credit for producing a son that was not afraid to hurl defiance in the face of the money bond. Whereas Mr. McFadden was elected to the high office on both the Democratic and Republican tickets, there can be no accusation of partisanship lodged against him because these speeches are set out in full in the congressional record. They carry weight that no amount of condemnation on the part of private individuals could hope to carry. All right, the Federal Reserve, a corrupt institution. And he goes in. Mr. Chairman, we have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. Now remember, this is in 1934, right? This is 1934, right? And if we do the history and the timelines, we know in 1913 they went to Jekyll Island, and then the collapse happened in 1929 to the 30s, and that's when they instituted the Great Gold Heist. Where'd it go? Back down here. Okay. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks, hereinafter called the Fed. The Fed has cheated the government of the United States and the people of the United States out of enough money to pay the nation's debt. The depredations and iniquities of the Feds has cost enough money to pay the national debt several times over. This evil institution has impoverished and ruined the people of the United States, has bankrupted itself, and has particularly bankrupted our government. It has done this through the defects of the law under which it operates, through the maladministration of that law by the Fed, and through the corrupt practices of the moneyed vultures who controlled it. Some people who think that the Federal Reserve Banks, United States government some people who think that the Federal Reserve Banks are United States government institutions. They are private monopolies which prey upon the people of these United States for the benefit of themselves and their foreign customers, foreign and domestic speculators and swindlers, and rich and predatory moneylenders. In that dark crew of financial pirates, there are those who would cut a man's throat to get $1 out of his pocket. There are those who send money into states to buy votes to control our legislatures. There are those who maintain international propaganda for the purpose of deceiving us into granting a new concessions which will permit them to cover up their past misdeeds and set again in motion their gigantic train of crime. These 12 private credit monopolies, go back to that, these 12 private credit monopolies are deceitfully and disloyally foisted upon this country by the bankers. Foisted upon this country by the bankers who came here from Europe and repaid us our hospitality by undermining our American institution. Those bankers took money out of this country to finance Japan in a war against Russia. They created a reign of terror in Russia with our money in order to help that war along. They instigated the separate peace between Germany and Russia, and thus drove a wedge between the Allies in World War. They financed Trotsky's passage from New York to Russia so that he might assist in the destruction of the Russian Empire. They fomented and instigated the Russian Revolution and placed a large fund of American dollars at Trotsky's disposal in one of their branch banks in Sweden so that through him Russian homes might be thoroughly broken up and Russian children flung far and wide from their natural protectors. Now doesn't that sound a lot like what's going on or what had went on? That sounded a lot like what had went on here. Alright? They broke up homes. We remember they took the fathers out of our homes and had our mothers raise them. Raise the children, raise us. Right? And it's continuing. It's continuing now. Even now it continues. So that's why it's a huge call out, a huge yell to the younger people, you know, to nationalize and get it together. You know, we need to get this thing together, y'all. It's been all out of whack, and again, I'm gonna have to jump off here in a minute, but I will come back on. I have to take care of some business, but we will get into more of Congressman McFadden's speech because it says a lot. It says a lot. It says definitely about a lot of, especially about the Federal Reserve Bank, right? And then when we do come back and after we talk about who was McFadden, right? We will get into, I don't know how I pulled it up. But I did drop it. I didn't drop it off, did I? I pulled so much stuff up on here, y'all, that I think it kicks it off. I think it kicked it off. Ah man, I don't know why I did that. I only can guess, but anyway, we will come back on here and we will get into yeah, here it goes, right here. It's not letting me pull it up. I gotta let some of it go. But we will get into James Traficant's speech, and where he also explains about the great gold heist. All right, and also mentioning that prior to this time or that time, we had allodial titles to our property. All right, and allodial, right? For everybody who don't know, and I know most of us know what allodial means, right? I know it's up there. Let's see even where they. See what they say, right? About allodial title. It's a lot where they try to give you can build a allodial title, right? Okay, but let's see what Wikipedia say. Wikipedia says an allodial title is ownership of real property that is independent of any superior landlord. All right, and that's what we used to hold. We used to hold allodial title to our properties. But once they took the gold and instrumented or instituted the Federal Reserve, who holds who holds the titles, right? Because if you have a home or and cars and stuff like that, the Federal Reserve actually holds that until we claim it. We have to claim it as nationals. We have to actually claim we want our shit back. You know what I'm saying? We want, as we nationals, pardon me for the French, but we want our stuff back. And you got to claim your nationality, right? So let me pull this back up. And if you have, like, again, uh, homes, cars, most of that stuff is under Freddie, Freddie Mac, and Fannie Lou. I know I get them mixed up, but I want you to hear something what this guy Ben Bernanke says, right? Uh, 2014, and if you do own a home, or you have quote unquote purchased a home, which you never purchased a home, it is under, Fannie Lou and Freddie Mac, right? And they are assets. They become assets. The deeds and bonds and all that we know are assets, right? That they stole. Now listen to what this guy says, right? Let me see what 235, right? Let's go to 235. 235, and let's hear what he has to say.
Knowing what's in there, is there a way for me to know what the Fed holds as far as real holding the Fed and knowing what's in there? Is there a way for me to know what the Fed holds as far as real holdings in my congressional district? You hear stories on the radio about the Fed owning a shopping center in Oklahoma City, for example. I didn't know you guys were into that, but what do you own in my congressional district? And if I have a constituent ask me that question, am I going to be able to get that information?
So the answer is yes. The only kind of strange assets like that you're referring to, basically what we own is treasuries and the liabilities of Fannie and Freddie. That's basically.
All right, he just said the liabilities of Fannie and Freddie. All right, now we're gonna go back. Yo. We're gonna go back. Let me pause this. We're gonna go back.
Is open. I know Dr. Paul talks a lot about auditing the Fed and knowing what's in there. Is there a way for me to know what the Fed holds as far as real holdings in my congressional district? You hear stories on the radio about the Fed owning a shopping center in Oklahoma City, for example. I didn't know you guys were into that, but what do you own in my congressional district? And if I have a constituent ask me that question, am I going to be able to get that information?
So the answer is yes. The only kind of strange assets like that you're referring to, basically what we own is treasuries and the liabilities of Fannie and Freddie. That's basically what we own.
All right, now he just said that, right? And he says treasuries, right? T-bonds. He owns T-bonds. They own T-bonds, right? So the United States, quote unquote, sells the T-bonds to the Federal Reserves. In turn, they give the United States Federal Reserve notes, right? Which is a fraud because, again, constitutional money, or the money according to the Constitution, is gold and silver coins, right? All right, all right. Let's get that. Let's get that. Let's get that through our head, right? And let's look at that. Let's look at that. Go back to the Constitution. Oh. Pardon me, I had to just get it. This is kind of. Go. Pardon me about the computer, y'all. It's jerky a little bit. Pardon me. Come on. Let me show you this one though first. Article 3, Section 1. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, right? One Supreme Court. Article 3. All right, it's kind of acting funny, y'all. I'm gonna have to probably cut it off because this is acting chumpy, and I'm trying to scroll up and down, and it's going in one direction, and I'm trying to. It's kind of slow. All right, maybe I have too many of these open here. All right, I'm gonna consolidate. See, there, go right there. See what? It's letting me scroll now, but it's not letting me. See, that's too fast. No, it's acting funny. All right, anyway, I'm gonna have to go take care of something anyway, and I will come back on here, um, and I'm gonna consolidate some of these tabs so it won't be so choppy and choppy, right? And again, oh, all right, all right. Well, look right here, Article 1, Section 10. All right. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or mark and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. All right. We debts can only be paid in gold and silver coinage, right? Or uh, uh, certificates, which were, of course, they were saying gold and coins, silver coins were too encumbersome and heavy to, walk around with a bag, and that's when they instituted the gold and silver certificates, right, or notes, and I have a couple of them, but yes, Article 1, Section 10. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So what the Federal Reserve and the United States government company, which is not a government really, but the company did was do a big fire sale of our estate, which they continue to do today, because the Federal Reserve note is a blank check on a closed account. They don't have no. They don't have no account. They're living off our virtue. They're living off of our estate, y'all. All right. So, but yet I'll come back because I gotta consolidate some of these tabs because it is moving slow, and I will jump back up on here. And again, um, I appreciate you for joining me, and I will jump back up here. Again, I want to say love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will always reign. And I am Supreme L, Moorish American National. Um, Thank you for joining me again on another episode of the More We Need to Know series. All right. Again, peace.